Bam.
Hi, this is Ann Swanson,
This is Mike Swanson.
and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah. All right. This is great. I'm trying to go live on Instagram for the first time ever. And we did it. Okay. We're also live on Instagram starting now. Fun. So this is a neat thing to do. And shout out to the folks over at Podmatch who provide this great service for folks who do podcasts like us. And you can either be a guest or you can be a host. And so I never say enough good things about Alex and his wife and his work. But thanks for the folks over at Podmatch. All right, so enough plugging stuff that I don't get paid to plug. Let's talk about you two. So Mike, let's you and I start first. You know, we're both veterans. Are you fully out of the military now or no?
I'm in the last few months. I'm currently in the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy internship.
Nice. Okay, but you're no longer putting on a uniform and sitting inside of tanks.
Nope, no more of that. But
oh man.
I'm sure going to miss it. I do miss it.
Yeah.
The tank part, right?
Deployments? The tank part. Yeah. How many combat deployments do you have?
So I've had one deployment to Europe, but no combat deployments.
That is rare. How'd you pull that off?
To be honest, I tried really hard to get the combat deployments. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas originally as an armor officer, where I spent about 15 months there. I deployed to Europe for 15 months, and I volunteered for Kuwait, volunteered for Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan twice, and was always needs of the force. They need me right where I'm standing. So each time they've just set them right where they need to be.
Surely you've talked to your friends and your peers in the tanker corps. This is not an easy job. And one of the things I think is really particularly hard, it's already dangerous enough to be a combat arms person and roll through in a tank in a combat environment. But then you get to a lot of these deployments and they're like, oh no, never mind that tank. And literally your guys' one of your mottos is death before dismount. And then you show up in Afghanistan, for example, and they're like, dismount. And you're like, but wait, that's not what we do. So it's such a crazy thing.
No, it absolutely is. And I guess in addition to being an armor officer, so that's what I did for 4 years, I'm also a military intelligence officer. And I just finished up my command as the U.S. Army Pacific Ace Company commander.
Nice. I'm a former counterintelligence guy myself, so we have similarities there. Did you go through Fort Huachuca?
I did. I did the MI Captain's Career Course there, and spent some time working my way up at Fort Shafter. The Ace Company was pretty awesome. It was 170 analysts, purely all source, but we worked alongside all the different ends.
One of my funniest moments, so I was cadre at Huachuca after I graduated. I deployed to Bosnia, came back as cadre, which is a total miracle if that happened. That was not by design. That was just Army's dumb luck. But I was cruising around the corner. No, actually, this is when I was in AIT. I was cruising around the corner in the BRAC area. For everybody watching, the BRAC area is like a college campus with all the dorms and there's offices there and stuff. And so there's hustle and bustle, all branches, international. Anyhow, so I come running around the corner. So I'm doing something for my commander, and I see a platoon of first and second lieutenants, just butter bars everywhere. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do the proper thing. Like, I can't call that group to attention. I don't know who to salute. They're in formation, and there's no one in charge of their formation. And so I'm running, and I'm like, look at them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to keep on running. And so we all agreed to ignore me. But it's an environment where these weird things can happen, where all of a sudden there can be 30 officers, none of which are in charge of anything. And then some E4, also with the college degree, comes running around. And it's just like, we don't know what to do here. And it's just a funny thing. Do you have any funny stories from being in training where like just weird things that you could never be taught on what to do happened?
You know, what happens is when you have 30 of the same rank at any situation, they always end up becoming just a group of just people. And so they don't know who's in charge and they act out. And I'd say one of my favorites was we were doing a lab where we were trying to test react to combat. And they didn't put anybody in charge. And so we had a fake casualty and they just kind of went, all right, Joe, what do we do? And they went, all pointing at each other. And, then we had one NCO who was a former NCO in the group, and he instantaneously got right on top of it. And then everyone was all chefs on top of it. And so Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess technically in my case, if I would have stopped and got into position of attention and saluted, someone from those lieutenants would have said, someone has to salute this kid. And then they would have to put that entire formation to the position of attention. And then, half right face towards me would have been like would have been a whole circus, just to return salute. So yeah.
Or the general's running down the street, and then all the lieutenants are falling over themselves trying to figure out, do we salute or do we just keep running?
Yeah. One time the lieutenants got the specialist. And again, like we're all peers in age and degree and everything. They just took a different path towards the military. And so I didn't see it. They got me, but they spaced themselves out like one salute distance, these three lieutenants. And I was like, oh, you guys got me. And I was famous for saluting with anything. If something was in my hands, I rendered salute with that thing. And I had like a box of files. And so I was having to like, and then I'm like, oh, there's another one coming. Just anyhow, it's a silly way to start the show, but some of these things that happen in the military, they're things that we don't ever talk about. Like it's not no shit there I was. It's just these funny little workings within the military, especially in MI where we're in the military, but a lot of times we're kind of not really in the military. It's a lot of first naming in intel. So I figured you would have some kind of insights on that.
It's a completely different world, really. Coming from combat arms, you have a different set of expectations. Like when I first took my platoon, I was coming from a tank platoon straight into a signal intelligence platoon. And they're like, we'll never see combat. We don't have to worry about weapons. We don't have to be prepared. But coming from the armor world, I was thinking to myself, maybe just come with a little bit extra. So I brought myself, my assigned weapon was a javelin. And so our company had a javelin. I stuck it underneath my desk. And one of my specialists jumps out and goes, there's a bird up outside our tent. This is at Hohenfels. And so it's just sitting there just staring at us going, what are you going to do about it? And everyone's trying to like point their M4s at it. I'm like, all right. Next thing I know, back into my armor world, and I have this javelin up and I'm aiming at it. And the OC calls it.
Jeez.
Boom, done.
Really?
Really, you need to have that experience and that readiness to react. Because if you don't, everyone just freezes.
Yeah.
But once you get but once you get the blood pumping, everyone goes right back into that being a soldier.
Yeah. It's true. So again, I want to bring you back in now too. When you hear your husband's stories and what it's like to be an armor officer, and that's, it's cool, but it's also not gentle living. But like the stories that you can have when you come out of these environments are not the real world, right? There are real world when we're doing it for real in Iraq, Afghanistan, Egypt, wherever we end up going, right? But that world doesn't translate to the real world. So we'll focus on me for a second just to give some clarity. And I think as someone who does yoga to help heal people, you'll appreciate this. I come back, I'm done being in war. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going back. And so a friend of mine, she's like, let's go do some yoga. And I'm like, I don't bend. Like even in normal life, my body is just not a flexible body. And she's like, that's all right. There's room and there's space for everybody. So I can't really do downward dog, like a central position. And everybody who's in yoga, we're like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, no, you don't understand. My arms don't go straight. My arms don't, neither one goes straight. They just don't. And so when I'm in downward dog, I'm like, I'm shaking from the second I get into it. And I'm only relieved when I don't have to be in that position anymore. But my knees don't bend all the way. There's all this combat injury. And so I'm with all these middle-aged ladies all trying to, sit in these positions. And I physically can't do a lot of them. And I need alternate positions for the alternate positions because even those don't work. And so that's one thing I want to discuss and kind of jump into the yoga thing with you. But also, the person who's teaching me, she's rubbing my back, my shoulders. She's like, do you see those roses in that rose garden over there? I want you to take a soft focus. And I'm like, yes, I see them 100% clear, like a laser. And she's like, not like a laser, not like a laser, rubbing my back. And I'm like, but I only have one way to focus, And so she was trying to get me to see a different world, but my world was so foreign to her. It was really hard for us to connect. Does that make sense to you at all?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And interesting, the definition of meditation is to focus in a relaxed way. It is that soft focus. And if you have that laser intense focus and then your mind wanders, you're like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. I got it wrong. I screwed up. I'm not good at this. Right. And that's what
Yeah,
people tend to do. But it's in a relaxed way. You know, when your mind wanders, you notice, you come back to center, you know, that's a key component of it. But I like how you emphasize the real world, because that's what my recent book is called, Meditation for the Real World, for the rest of us, right? We feel like it's not accessible. We think you have to sit on a cushion on the floor and, you know, meditate for 20 minutes in perfect silence, but that does not have to be how it is. I think one of the things about Mike's experience in the tanks, which he always says is his best job ever, right? Being
Best
a tank.
job I ever had.
Yeah, being a tank commander, the best job he's ever had. He's like, I don't know if anything will ever compete with that. I think it is that ability to focus and in a relaxed way, because if something comes at you, you have to adapt and change and be able to breathe through it, right? You can't be like all uptight, or else it's not going to work as well in the circumstances he was in. And so I've, you know, funny enough, found that a lot of times he's been learning to meditate while he's still in the military. Like, it's been translating really well. He's like, oh, wow, this is actually really practical when we go for 2 weeks without sleep for an exercise. And I'm the only one that's able to focus. I'm the only one that's not snapping at people. I'm the only one taking care of myself and able to manage in that situation when everybody else is really struggling. So meditation can be adaptive to everybody's real world.
Yeah. Another thing that was like a real world versus the combat world. So I'm laying on a mat with someone who's taking me through the yoga thing, and I don't really know this person. I never really found my home yoga person, and so we're at the end. You know, I've gotten the good workout. I'm feeling good. And everything's like as good as I know how to feel as a novice. And she's like, "Close your eyes," and I'm like, "All right, I've closed my eyes." Like I'm along for the ride and everything. And she's padding around, you know, walking around me, and I don't know what the F she's doing. So I'm like, I'm not going to open my eyes. And so I open my eyes, and she's above my head, and she's pulling an invisible string out of my head. And I'm like, see, you can't walk around a combat dude like that,
you can't,
sneaking around doing stuff, and then pull up my invisible string out of my face, because I don't know how to process that, you know. And so, and the other thing is, I'm trying to not kill that. I'm like, the person who's walking around is a very nice lady. And so I'm focused fully on me. And I got to imagine, Mike, like you have to recognize with this too. Like we sleep on the ground and we're like comfy, you know, like it's just not a real world. So I'm going to shut up and talk about this a little bit, you guys.
An important thing, I think, in your circumstances to look for a yoga class is trauma informed, where the teacher has that experience. So if you do any trauma informed training where they talk about the military, they tell us key things like don't walk around, don't force people to close their eyes. That's two key things for a trauma informed class that, you know, you wouldn't do. You wouldn't touch somebody without asking specifically, especially not reaching around the back of them. For a military population, even little things we learn in those sort of trauma-informed trainings, like don't say, a common thing in meditation is we say to surrender to gravity, surrender to the moment.
I don't like it.
And that's not a thing you would say. Instead, you'd say and be at ease, right? So we adapt the words. So I think that wasn't the right class. And I think a lot of people go to yoga or try meditation and they don't have a good experience because the teacher isn't trained specifically for what they deal with, whether it be, you know, being trauma informed or they have anxiety. And they're like, wow, well, the meditation made my anxiety worse, or that wasn't the right yoga class for me. I can't do downward dog. There's many types of yoga classes where you never do downward dog, right? Or you do modifications. So I think that's one thing I really want to emphasize as a yoga therapist, is that it can be therapeutically adapt for the individual and the situation. So if you've ever tried yoga or meditation before and you had a similar experience, it didn't work for you, you were just, you know, doing the wrong practice for you or for that, you know, life situation or whatever you were dealing with at the time. There's so many meditation techniques and yoga styles to play with.
Yeah, you're speaking my to my language or to my yoga experience.
Yeah.
My best position is mountain. Just stand up straight. Like this is good for me. However long you want to do this one, I can do it. And like the upright positions are good, but I don't get up and down off the floor well. Both my shoulders are screwed up, both my hips are screwed up, both my ankles are screwed up. And again, like my legs don't collapse. So just a funny little anecdote, and I think you'll appreciate this. So I'm working privately with this instructor, and we're vibing well. Like it's that part's fine. I'm like, she's like, you need to relax your thighs so that you can collapse. I'm like, hey, my legs have never closed all that way. They just don't do that. She's like, well, let's see if we can loosen it up. And she like rolls up a blanket and she puts it behind my knees. And then she's like, lean back on that. And it just squirts the blanket out, right? Because there's just too much stake in my legs and it just doesn't work. So we were trying to find all these alternate positions so I might be able to do my own yoga because I don't want to be disruptive to everybody else in the class. And so it came down to, and I don't remember the list of things, but when I went to yoga class, I had to grab 3 bricks, a big old tuffet. There was another thing I had to grab all this accoutrement to do my class. And I just never felt fully able to do that. And it's so distracting to me personally, even if not to anybody else. It was really hard for me to say, everybody's paying good money for these classes too,
Yeah. I teach a yoga for back care class weekly that Mike goes to, but also my, 78-year-old father goes to. And it's such a wide range of people that I'm really mindful of those, like keeping everybody feeling accessible. So there's definitely classes that will work, but I teach and do a lot of chair yoga. I know that sounds super lame, but it's actually not. You can get a real workout not only sitting in the chair, but holding on to the chair. So my YouTube channel is mostly chair yoga, believe it or not, and Tai Chi and self-massage. So that's Swanson Wellness on YouTube. And I find that I can get a really great movement practice and really get in the zone using the chair. Even I do things against the wall. So there's other adaptations that can be helpful, but I know what you mean. All the accoutrements in the class. It's another great route that you did. You go to a group class, you're like, this is the group class I want to go. It's with my partner, friends. So you have a private session with the teacher to figure out how can you adapt and be comfortable. So that is another route that I would recommend to people. But, don't be afraid of chair yoga. It can be really adaptive and there's so much you can do. You can do it in your desk chair in between meetings and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and then go ahead, Mike, please.
Let's unpack that a little bit. When it comes from the military perspective, when I hear the word surrender, that doesn't really invite relaxation.
No.
That implies that it makes me resistant and never.
Yeah.
And when I hear the words
at ease,
that means something completely that does not imply relaxation for me.
No,
those don't.
No. What would it be for you?
It usually implies complete attention is going to be given to whoever just said at ease.
Well, that's kind of what I'm wanting. Yeah, I'm wanting you to be at ease, I want you to be focused
at ease
and relaxed.
At ease is also a modified position of attention. And so instead of being like this, you're kind of a relaxed version like that. Yeah. And so, and you're tracking only with your eyes. Like it's very specific with what at ease is. It's not parade rest. You can move your head. Maybe you can relax. But when you say at ease, it is a command. And that's the part that I think Mike and I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you want? I don't like the word relax. Nobody likes to be told to relax. So what would you want?
I think it's just an interesting part of the military experience of trying to get used to the lingo, the way civilians behave. Even seeing a civilian walking across a perfectly mowed lawn sometimes triggers a slight reaction when it's near a government building. You understand. And I'm that person's liable to get yelled at by Sergeant Major. And it's an adjustment. And it's something that I think also can represent an opportunity. One thing that hit me kind of powerfully was I will surrender to the process without judgment. And
that's in one of the meditations.
Without judgment.
Yeah.
Without judgment. But I will say, I think that the military has sometimes a unhealthy attitude of refusing to give up on things. And I'm not saying that it's good for military people to give up on things. It's a bad habit. But I think being able to take a step back and recognize that decision of stopping or going can be looked at without judgment and can be made to objectively smart decisions. There's often like armor going head on all the time is not always a smart move. Sometimes sit there and then flank coming from the side, or counterintelligence, trying a different social angle to get someone to talk. Like we're talking like real military terms here. But yeah, I think it's really funny when you hear these very basic terms that civilians are totally cool with using regularly have such a different meaning and a triggering emotional reaction to military people, like repeat.
Yeah. I once applied for a job with a major power company out here in California, and it was a veteran connected job. So like the veteran, whatever, so basically it was something part of their veteran initiative within the company. Right. And they sent me a letter saying, you failed to meet the minimum requirements for the job. And I'm like, you just called me a piece of shit. And by the way, I have a master's degree, right? I am a veteran. What minimum standard did I fail to meet? And so like it got my ire. And so I fired off an email to the CEO, and I'm like, hey, when you guys say this stuff to veterans, you're not speaking in terms that make sense to us, because you just told me that I suck, and he, to his credit, had someone call and talk to me, and I ended up not working with those guys, but at least he took the time, because I would want to know if I was the boss. I would want to know if I was communicating poorly to any group of people, and by the words that I chose. And I guess the same thing applies to yoga instructors and how to deal with that. So how do you individually, because you do individual things for alternate positions, how do you figure out how to communicate with someone who comes from such a different world? And you, like you said at ease, and whatever, we'll get around that, but it is a command to us. It is the actual drill and ceremony command.
Yeah. Well, y'all haven't given me an alternative, because I'm not going to use the word relax. So y'all still need to give me an alternative to that. But that is better than surrender. That was one we all use the word surrender a lot. So that's one we definitely try to avoid. I think a lot of it is like I said, being trauma informed, and there's specific trainings for yoga teachers for working with military populations, for teaching meditation and yoga for military populations. There's a lot of great training. So finding teachers that have that specific training or classes, that are offered at the VA or offered in a facility where there's going to be other military there is going to make a difference for people if they're concerned about those things. If you want to, challenge yourself, like Mike is saying, he's like, okay, I'm going to accept that cue of surrender without judgment. You can challenge yourself. But if you want to find a safe space, there's definitely those safe spaces for you. Or also finding classes on YouTube that you feel comfortable with, because guess what? If you're not comfortable, you just press stop. You're done.
Yeah, the YouTube thing is great. And in general, wherever you consume something like that, you have your own YouTube channel. The link to that is right down below. But wherever you can go and consume that, you can dive in and go as fast as you want or as slow as you want. I want to, in a friendly way, because I'm a nice guy, but I want to smash my competitors, my peers, right? And so I get really alpha in these kind of situations where I'm going to focus, rather than on the whole process or on healing, I am going to be like, fuck all these old ladies. I'm gonna sit here in downward dog as long as goddamn possible. I ain't quitting. And it becomes more like a competition with me, right? Because I've had to be an alpha for so long within a system that requires me to stay up for 2 weeks in a row. I often say, I know you'll appreciate this, like a 30-hour day is a normal thing when you're deployed. I mean, I've got to do all of my pre-deployment work, days mission work. I've got to do that mission, which could be 12 hours. You don't know. And then I got to come back and do all the post work, the reporting and everything else, the working out, the eating, and all these things, recovery. And then it's like, oh shoot, I didn't finish yesterday's work. And you do, all of a sudden it is the next day, right? And so this world change, I love that you're helping us explore it, because there are so many approaches and so much willingness to help us get there. But we are just wired so differently. I really do want to I don't want to destroy everybody in there. That's the wrong way to say it, but that is the actual way I am approaching this. Like, how do I destroy? How do I outcompete? How do I do Warrior 2 pose harder, faster, stronger, better than these old ladies, kind of thing.
Yeah, and the first step is noticing that you're doing that, because ultimately yoga is not a competition. It's
damn
not
it!
a competitive sport, and neither is meditation. Funny enough, I'm imagining I have this meditation headband you wear, and it measures your brain waves. I'm imagining like the two of us both wearing this meditation headband and like competing who can focus the best. You're like, I'll win with the data that comes on your phone of your brainwave activity. So
that's 100% true. That would happen.
It's not a competition, although you could consider it, a competition with yourself and with your ego. I think that would maybe be a way to reframe it. But yeah, that's the challenge, and I think that's what could be really beneficial for so many veterans is having aspects of your life that are not a competition, even if it's just that 1 hour class and that practice in that one time.
But I think what we're talking about here is actually right at the heart of what this is all about with meditation. It's being able to pay attention to specifically where you're at. I think a lot of these gut reactions are conditioned in us, and so it's an automatic response. I think, Anne, you had the term, what's it called? That part of the brain where it's in automatic mode or default mode?
Default mode network. That's what happens when we're like going into just that mind wandering and that automatic responses that we have in our head. And meditation gets us out of the default mode network into something that sounds way better, the central executive network, which is where we make these higher decisions. We are able to, really take control actually in a better way, be able to emotionally regulate and make healthy lifestyle decisions.
And I guess the big thing there, like, when we're talking about raw performance, do we want to be in the default mode network? As I've never been in combat, but I've worked in a lot of highly dangerous training situations. You can't afford to lose focus. You can't be worrying about what's going on at home or spend 3.5 weeks or 14 months away from home, and you can't be wondering if your Chevy's okay in the storage lot. None of that. You're focused on the moments. And when I took command, I knew that the biggest thing I could do was to not be that person that instantaneously just goes off their rocker when they get bad news, because there's plenty of bad news to go around. And so I think being able to take a step back inside yourself and choose how you want to respond is a superpower that can translate to combat and really should be a trait to anybody that wants to manage people.
Yeah, it translates also. I mean, the one reason it's so popular to do meditation and mindfulness is because so many CEOs of Microsoft and Google, they do it because it works also for productivity. That extreme focus is really critical for productivity, as well as happiness and letting go of your ego and those other things we were already discussing. It is helpful for productivity.
I've given you a lot of ridiculous examples from about 10 years ago when I had gotten back from, going to all these hard places. And the reality is I have advanced. It hasn't necessarily been on a yoga path for me, but I've had to retrain myself and learn to accept things and to surrender to things, and that these things are not weakness, right? But in the world that I worked in, that was weakness. And there wasn't a lot of time for that, right? And you couldn't worry about your Chevy. If my Chevy was on fire in the damn, Army lot, then that just gets taken care of when I get back. Right now, this is, especially in my job, I can't speak for other jobs. My job required me to go off the camp a lot. And so there is no room for all of the other things. I would check in with my girlfriend once a day, that kind of thing. But then that's it. That's all that regular life got. The other 20 plus hours out of the day was this competition, this professional competition. And in my world, and I know Mike, you'll appreciate this. One of my favorite KPIs was when some young soldier would run up to me, Pete, because that's who I always wanted to be known as Pete. That meant that like I was doing my job. Pete, the Taliban, they know who you are and they've targeted you. They say, we want to kill Pete. And I'm like, yes, that's good. I'm on the field, right? And so I'm coming from that world where I'm desperate to be noticed by the enemy, and so that they understand, they're feeling my impact. And then you got to come back and learn a whole different way of working. Like
Yeah.
executives don't think that way, and that kind of thing. They say, I'm just like a spy, and I'm like, yeah, you're not, but it's all right. We can talk about that stuff if you want. So there's a whole new world that you're helping us translate.
Yeah, we were just watching the new Avatar live action show last night that just came out. It's really good. And one of the warriors trained to fight, he wasn't there during the fighting. He was with this woman who became the moon, but that's beside the point. He was with her, and he was upset. He's like, I was trained to fight and I wasn't a warrior. And her father said, you don't have to be a warrior all the time to be a hero. And I think that that's a really poignant message, is that when we get into the real world of raising kids and working, a CEO job or a regular quote unquote job, your ways of being a hero may be a little different. And so adapting to that real world is, I guess, really what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and it's a really neat conversation. When the world moves closer to yoga, like I'm from California, a lot of people have really moved really close to it. There are yoga studios everywhere. They're not as many as there used to be, but it was a real boom when I first got back. And there was like all the accoutrement within that world. Forget about the tuffet and the bricks and all that stuff, but like the yoga beads and hairstyles and clothes that I'm not going to wear any of these clothes. Like I'm not that demo, I don't wear veteran shirts. I'm Pete in this case. Right. And so there's all of these points to have entry, and when you're trying to collect these people and help them, gosh, it just would seem like it's interminable with my own preciousness about my preciousness, that I might miss out on something great because I am so complex with how rigid I'm going to be about certain things. And over time, you can wash that away, but it must be hard to learn how to adapt to all the different things, whether they're trauma informed or body part informed or whatever it is.
I think fighting the image of it having to be one certain way, you have to dress a certain way. Even for meditation, you have to sit a certain way. So on the cover of Meditation for the Real World, there's somebody sitting on a subway, on a train, and she's the only one that's like chill and really focused. Everybody else is hunched over their phones or their computers, distracted, and rather than scrolling while we wait, we can integrate meditation and meditate while you wait. So it doesn't have to be this formal practice of like, sitting on a cushion for 30 minutes a day with chimes in the background in a studio. It can be a 1-minute meditation when you're waiting at the doctor's office because you're anxious about going in to see the doctor. It can be those little moments where you check in right before you accept on a Zoom meeting and you're going to have an important conversation. It's these moments where we can integrate meditation. So it doesn't have to be like you think it has to be. And same with yoga. I do I'll do little stretches against the countertop while I'm waiting for the water to boil. That can be my downward dog. It doesn't have to be on the floor, on a mat with yoga pants. You can be in normal clothes to gain the benefits of these things.
Yeah. I love the practice of micro meditation. It's something that I sort of discovered myself along my path because it takes discipline that I just never developed to lay there for half an hour and stay awake, by the way, because you lay me down. And this is Michael, appreciate this. When the sergeant major's like, if it's raining, you put a jacket on, a jacket on. If you can be sitting, you sit. If you can lay down, you lay down. If you can be asleep, you sleep. Right. And so I'm like, I get to lay down and I'm out. But for sure, even at a red light and just a couple of just deep elements breaths of meditation has done a world of difference for me, especially if I feel I'll take all of my gear and I'll put it in a backpack because I'm a moron, and I will go to someone's house and set everything up and put myself into this lathery, sweaty panic as I try to get all the technical things, physical things assembled and remember what I'm supposed to do with this guest. And then I sit down in front of them and try to, do this interview. It's really like 3 people's jobs, but I insist upon doing it myself. And there's a lot of meditation that goes into that. And I've had to learn to give myself more time than I physically need to get there so that I can mentally and spiritually arrive and be ready for that wonderful exchange that I'm going to have with this person. And that conversation, this right here for me is a meditation as well. I'm exploring where my ego is, where the right question is. I'm tracking different things, but it's all for me now after thousands of these things. It is an art form. It is a like a yoga type thing where I'm going through this process that I'm very comfortable with, and I've learned to accept totally different inputs than I did when I was asking questions in combat.
Yeah, and that mindfulness, that present moment awareness, and that powerful presence begins to permeate through everything you do. And you get into what psychologists call the flow state, which is when you're completely immersed, like you just described, setting up an interview and then doing the interview. You're completely immersed in the moment. Or some people, when they're playing, Mike plays the ukulele, or you're a painter and you paint. When you do some sort of act where you're just like, this is my meditation, right? It is similar to meditation. It's that flow state, and meditation is a type of flow state. And if you can integrate these meditation practices, whether it's 10 minutes or this powerful pause of 1 minute, mixed in here or there, then you're going to be able to get into flow state quicker and stay there longer for those activities you love.
Yeah. When you got into yoga, did you know you'd be this deep into it? I mean, you're professionally doing it. Okay, a lot of people get to that level, but you're writing books. Obviously, you get past like the first or second level of what it takes to lead a class because you're explaining really big concepts. Did you know you were going to end up here, or did you just, because some folks are like, I'm going to do this, and they're right. Other folks are like, I'm going to go on this journey, and look where I've ended up.
Well, I came to these practices, specifically yoga and Tai Chi, because I myself dealt with chronic joint pain since I was a teenager and anxiety, debilitating anxiety. Like I'd pass out in the most inopportune times. And so I came to these practices for myself and myself only. And, even when I'd go to yoga class, by the time we'd get to the meditation part of the class, I'd be looking at my watch, like, it is time to go. I don't have time for this crap. This is a waste of my time. And so I didn't really get all the components, but over time, I started to unravel the true benefits of meditation as I got a taste of what it feels like to get that weight off of my shoulders. And I started to see benefits in my pain and in my anxiety from mind-body practices and from meditation. I ended up studying Tai Chi in China and then yoga and Eastern and Ayurvedic healing in India. And that sparked my interest. So it was like an evolving path to like go back to school for science. So I had an art undergrad. All the things that we learned of anatomy and physiology about yoga and what was happening to your brain and meditation, I was fascinated. And I thought the best way to be the best yoga teacher and meditation teacher would be to go back and do the pre-med course load and go into something in the medical field. So I did that. And I worked in a cadaver lab and I became a massage therapist. So it kind of just all unraveled and it seemed disparate, but I knew I wanted to be the best yoga teacher possible. And then as I was finishing up all that pre-med course load, I was about to apply for school to go into the medical field, and the first Masters of Science in Yoga Therapy popped up. And I ended up joining that because that's perfect for what I wanted to do. And so it was kind of one thing led to another, but everything felt as I was doing it, as I was working in the cadaver lab in the morning and then massage school at night and then teaching yoga classes, like it felt so like all over the place. Like she has so many different interests, but it all came together with my first book, Science of Yoga. And that book really took together all of my learning from India and from my graduate degree and the cadaver lab to create this book. And so it's weird how it all just comes together. I know Mike's talked about that too, all his random skills, being a tank commander and then working with guns and then managing 160 people. Like, weirdly, that's all coming together for a job now. And so you don't feel like your disparate skills will come together, but they will.
Mike?
I don't know how to follow that up. She's pretty incredible, isn't she? But
She is. Yeah. You're just running around
Yeah.
playing tanker,
yeah, I think experience tends to come together in just the right way, unexpectedly, if you really put your focus on it. Becoming a tanker and having a background in reconnaissance made me perfectly suited to become an intelligence officer. And then as an intelligence officer, that confidence may be absolutely natural at briefing, because at the end of the day, I'm less scared of a bunch of staff captains than I am compared to live enemy. And then commanding, well, this is something you have to rise to. And
Yeah.
Now going into maybe working at Microsoft.
yeah, working with Microsoft, I'm currently learning how to do server and cloud administration and how to use artificial intelligence, which doesn't sound at all related to those things, but ultimately it's about application and the willingness to learn, and I'll become a complete beginner again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a critical part of it. And also, some of the jobs you're looking at, it's like required to have security experience or knowledge of specific areas in the world. You're like, well, I have that. How are they going to find somebody with all these boxes checked? So it does all come together in the end.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of unique things.
Go ahead, Mike.
Like who has practical intelligence experience, background in security, both physical as well as administrative security, and can you manage multiple people while advising projects that are designed to help form military application? That's not exactly that's a very niche set of skills.
Yeah, and these job descriptions are like, and you got to have, 10 years of experience of that. And he's like, yep, somehow I do. It's like veterans often can be really well suited for these unique positions because you get so many different skills that, like mine, seem so disparate, but they can all come together.
Yeah. Yeah. When someone's kicking around the idea of getting back into yoga, or maybe just taking the step for the first time ever now, but there's a pretty significant, like, I like to swim, right? But no matter how much I've swam in my life, there's still this bubble around the pool that I've got to like pop through and to get into the pool, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get in the pool. I love being in the pool. I love getting out of the pool. I feel like $1,000,000. I mean, it's a meditation. It's a practice. It is, and for me, probably better than yoga, right? Like minute for minute. But there is still a bubble that I have to always like pop to get into the pool, because I don't want to get into the pool. It's such a crazy thing. So how does someone pop their bubble to get more involved in yoga? What's the next step that someone takes who's had a failed practice, got away from it, or just wants to start one?
Yeah. And by the way, I use yoga and meditation kind of interchangeably, because when you look at yoga, we think of the poses like that in the West yoga is known for, but there's 8 parts to yoga, and only one of those 8 is the poses, and 4, maybe 5, depending how you count them, maybe even 7, depending on how you count them, are meditation. So just to clarify that meditation is a huge part of yoga. I'd say the first thing is to go to meditationfortherealworld.com, because I have a gift for your listeners, which is a 5-day meditation challenge that incorporates music that has been engineered to optimize your brain waves and nature sounds. So if music helps you relax, this can be a really unique approach. So meditationfortherealworld.com, and those meditations, less than 10 minutes a day, incorporating even those 1-minute meditations, that's how you can get started. And the book, obviously, that'll help you really dive in. And I think another point that you brought up is like swimming is your yoga. You don't have to do that 1/8 of the practice of yoga poses if that doesn't suit you, or you haven't found something that does suit you, right? within that yet. And swimming is your physical practice. That's fine. The physical poses in yoga are only there to prepare your body and mind for meditation. So if you swim first and then meditate, great. Wonderful. I have a whole section in the book on swimming and how to integrate meditation into it. I have a whole section in meditation for the real world on going to the gym and your exercises at the gym and how that could be your physical practice that prepares you for meditation. So you don't have to do downward facing dog to be doing yoga. You can do whatever physical practice suits your body and your lifestyle best and follow it with those meditations.
For me, the practice of swimming, there's a couple ways I approach it. One is I might have a particular body part, and so I'll invent a stroke to work that body part. Like, let's say I want to work my traps because they're sore, they need work, whatever it is. And so I'll invent a stroke because I can do all the swims. I can do all of them. So there's that part of it. And it also puts me in an uncomfortable position because these are not efficient strokes. They're designed to blow out my traps and shoulders, right? Because that's what they're designed to do. But then there's also like, I'm going to swim a number of laps, right? And then can I count every lap or will I lose track? There's a meditation in that. And then there's just an open swim where like, I'm going to swim for 90 minutes. And I don't stop. I don't go super fast because I'm not trying to race, but I'll get in the pool and I'll do those 150, whatever it is, laps that I'll do, but I don't worry about the number. And it's almost like a waking dream because I don't tell my brain where to go. I just let it purge and process and do whatever, like turn in the TV channels, kind of what it's like. All of a sudden there's a song in there, then the song disappears. And then I'm like, flip, turn, poof. And then I'm like, something will happen. And so really for me, it is a meditation. My mind is more clear. I've pushed a lot of trash out. And again, not only because my heart, my lungs, and my lymph nodes and all these things have been activated, but my brain has just been purged. And right now I can't swim because my leg is, I have my ankle rebuilt and I've had a little bit of an infection problem. So I still have to wait another month before I can get in the pool. But I'm desperate to get back in the pool to get the benefit of all of this wellness that's thrown at me. It's just impossible to feel bad when you get out of a pool if you can swim a mile.
I'm with you. I love swimming so much. And another component that you didn't mention that swimming has that's very meditative is the breathing. It has breathing practices. That's another one of the 8 limbs of yoga is the breathing practices that we do to prepare our mind and body for meditation and higher states of consciousness and focus. And you're getting that naturally through swimming. So swimming incorporates, like you said, all of the things that you could get from a yoga class. So if swimming's your thing, do the swimming. And you can incorporate meditation before, during, and after. And there's techniques of that in the book. Specifically, I have a whole section on swimming, because I love swimming so much. So definitely check that out because, whatever your thing is, that could be your yoga physical practice. I want to break that stereotype that it has to be at a studio on a mat with a downward facing dog on the floor. It doesn't have to be like that.
I will say,
I'm putting a link up here. Go ahead, Mike.
I do identify a lot of what you're talking about with getting into the pool itself. That's a whole different barrier. Is one thing that I do every morning. That's part of my morning ritual. Is I jump into the ice shower. I turn the shower all the way to its coldest setting, and then I hop in and wash my face. And when you're coming right out of the grogginess of sleep, it's quite a surprise. And sometimes I feel really hesitant to hop in. And so the trick I use, and I think it's kind of similar to when you're shooting a rifle, actually, is I start breathing, and as soon as my breathing becomes predictable, at the point of release of my breath, I hop into the shower. And so at that, because that's the same moment where the bullet releases your gun, it's almost an unexpected release. And to be honest, for the first 5 or 6 seconds, I don't even feel the ice water. And I just feel a moment of sudden clarity. And I think that can be used for almost any technique. It's one I learned from meditation. It's when you release, it's box breathing, which has been highlighted a lot by Navy SEALs. So you inhale for 4 seconds, then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds. And then during that 4 seconds of release is when I do something I'm not necessarily comfortable with or totally sure about. I think it can be applied to talking in front of people, or if you're airborne, jumping out of an airplane for the first time, to be able to get yourself in that rhythm, that can really be a game changer. And so I think that's the best technique I've learned from Anne so far about how I would get to getting into the pool.
I think also there's with the pool, it's you got to get dressed in a bathing suit and walk through the the locker room, and all of those things, get prepared. We're actually trying to go to the pool tomorrow, so I can relate to you. And it's so cold. I have this I got a wetsuit jacket because it's so cold in the water.
Yeah.
And so that's another barrier too. But as he said, you get benefits from being in the cold water. So there's that. But it's like once you get past those barriers and do something that you had some resistance to do, getting in the pool, getting in the ice shower, meditating, going to yoga, exercising, whatever the thing may be, it makes it that much sweeter when you do it and complete it. You're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my swimming, so I can do all of the swims, but I swim with fins, goggles, and a center snorkel, because that reduces a lot of the repetitive stresses on my body parts that don't want to do these things. And I use the fins partly because my hips hurt, but my shoulders hurt worse when I swim. So if I get tired, so it took a while to put all this together, but I was able to go, okay, I can swim like this indefinitely. Like I can just, I'm not going to swim out there for 2 days, but I can swim for a really long time. And it looks terrible. You don't want to watch my stroke to coach anybody. It's like a damn shitter sucker truck coming down the road. But it doesn't stop. I just bam, 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 back and forth. And yeah, it is really, for me, it is incredible. And I don't mind at all. Anything, the second I'm in the pool and going, it's begun, and I'll feel great for the next several hours. And the depression, the suicidal ideation that I get, all of these things are really just kind of flushed out the door until my balloon starts to fill up and get tension again, right? And so that practice, and I'm paying the price right now because I can't do all these things because of my, I got to heal, and that means I've got to sacrifice some of the things I do for all of me. But I guess this is a good thing to talk about too. So I have my ankle rebuilt because I hurt in combat, and it just was no longer. I had to have that happen, and so that meant like 4 weeks of no weight, 6 weeks of like limited motion, And then right when I started getting back into like, okay, we can do this. I get this infection. I'm in the hospital for a week, and I was trying to explain to the staff. I'm like, yeah, I know we're working on my infection, but I have a mental health problem as well, so I need to like get out of this room every now and then. And I'm not going to be crazy, but I have to maintain the whole system because the balloon is getting stretched, and that's not good for me. And so there's all of these things that go into trying to care for ourselves. And I'm not the oldest person in the world, but I'm 54, right? So I'm not young, and I put a lot of miles on my body from these sports and the Army. So it is a full person approach to these things, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. And some things specifically for your recovery where you're limited in motion and being able to go places necessarily right now. I have a few science-backed tips for you. So one is that our brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between actually being in nature. We know nature is very healing, right? Actually being in nature and listening to nature sounds and looking at nature images or videos. So if you were stuck in a hospital bed, I would say do the meditation challenge at meditationfortherealworld.com, because I integrate a lot of that sounds of nature in there to change your brain waves to be more relaxed. But you can even just find, sound machines, or go online and find sounds of nature, whether you like the sound of a waterfall or a sound of rain falling. That's very, very good for your brain. And if you even have an image or a video of it playing in the background, there's a reason that those YouTube videos get like millions of views, is because it's good to have on in the background. So I'd recommend that. Another thing I'd recommend, I know you can't swim right now, but you can do what Olympic athletes do. And it's a meditation technique. It's visualization. And we see that when we visualize doing something like a specific swim stroke, or, you know, the Olympic athletes would visualize doing their sport, maybe a dive or a flip or whatever it may be, you actually get neural signals to the muscles as if you're doing it. They've shown that people just sitting there and imagining they're going to the gym compared to people that were going, they built muscle, both strength and flexibility, not even moving. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the gym, you shouldn't swim. I'm saying that you should, when you can't, still visualize doing those activities. Like, take yourself there. And your brain likes these procedural memories. It's a really good thing for helping you fall asleep too. They've seen this in research, is, you know, rather than counting sheep, imagine you're going and you're getting ready at the gym to go for a swim. Procedural, you're walking, you're getting in your bathing suit, you walk out there, you jump in, you got all your accoutrements on, and you swim. And you do something that you have as part of your routine. Maybe somebody else, it's a hike that they can't do, that they like to do with their dog every day. Do that in your head. It's going to give you the same endorphins, the same feel-good chemicals as if you're doing it. Your brain doesn't know the difference if you can really visualize it. So that's what I would do in the meantime, is use visualization and use nature, sounds, and visuals to bring you there.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for sure. What is your home stroke? And then do you mess around with really crazy alternate strokes, like any of the trudgeons or any of these things at all when you swim?
I do breaststroke. You do freestyle, right?
Always free.
I like breaststroke. I know it's slower, kind of like you were describing, but I feel like I get a better workout, and I'm counteracting any, you know, hunching over at the desk or any like day-to-day activities. So I'll do breaststroke all day. And he's freestyling, tripling my laps while I do breaststroke. But I like to do what you do too, is I'll make up ones. He will too. I like to run in the pool. I really like to run.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do aqua Zumba. And so I love doing all the movements in the pool. They teach you the coolest ab exercises ever. Because ab exercises on the floor, they kind of hurt my neck and shoulders. And it's very hard to find a good core workout that doesn't cause strain in my neck. And so in the pool, you can like hop your legs up to the side and to the front and do kicks, and you get this crazy core workout with no impact. So I really like doing just like exercises in the pool that I've learned from Aqua Zumba, just kind of on my own. I'll do like 100 of them while I'm talking to Mike. And so that's what I like doing. What about you, Mike?
I mean, I enjoy freestyle, mostly doing laps. I used to race myself to try and see what could I do for the maximum laps I can sustain. I've tried Aqua Zumba too, and I will say that is
a workout.
It seems silly, but I have to say I got pretty shredded doing those workouts too. Yeah, those are my favorites.
And then you like scuba diving and free diving a lot too. So we live in Hawaii, so I like scuba diving too. And he goes though without anything and free dives for minutes at a time while I'm at the surface just snorkeling.
Yeah. I like the practice of, and it's meditative for sure, is to calm everything down. It could be post-swim, but usually before. And I'll just express all my air out, and I'll sink down, and I'll just dead body for as long as I can. And hopefully nobody freaks out. On occasion, they think I'm dead. I'm like, no, I'm in the pool. But because they're not used to seeing someone just sit on the bottom of the pool for as long as they could withstand it, you know, and then I'll come up, get a breath. And that's it, just a breath, and then right back down. And, you know, my time's down gets shorter and shorter. But it is very, I don't know. I mean, it's very much a meditation, but it feels ethereal, or it doesn't feel real after a little while. And I'm not in any kind of danger, just so anybody knows. Like, I don't want to say I'm an expert swimmer, but I'm a very good swimmer. I'm very capable. So I'm never in danger in a pool. And so if I'm down there and I can't do minutes at a time, but I can do 60 seconds and then, you know, and then 55 and then 50 and then come up. I also will do what I call the eagle, which is a modified butterfly. And I'll put myself into oxygen debt. And I can only do it for so many, you know, like maybe a lap and a half, because it's pretty rigorous on me. Or I'll do the thing I call the dolphin, which is kind of like a more underwater version of butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's less like, kick, stroke, kick, stroke. It's more like dive, explode, dive, explode. And I try to
Isn't
see
that
like if I can do the
easier
length.
than butterfly? I
What's that?
think I was taught that because I don't know how to do butterfly, and I think they were teaching me dolphin because it's easier than butterfly, and it was to
I don't even know if
prepare
it's
you.
really
Is
called
that
dolphin.
true?
I just call it that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel like I've done one similar to that as a prep for butterfly too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to use my legs to power most of my motion, right? To really blow all the oxygen and really create oxygen debt and then withstand the aftermath of that lap and a half by just getting right into crawl. And I don't stop. So I have to recover, which requires me to be calm in a way that is really unpleasant, but in a wonderful way. Does that make sense? Like I get
Yeah.
so oxygen in debt, I can't stop and raise my hand and be like, yeah, I went fast. Like, no, you still have 50 more laps to go. So I'll mix that in. One of those, I usually don't do butterfly. It's a little hard on my body, but I'll do one of those really hard oxygen debt type strokes, like what I call the eagle and what I call the dolphin.
Yeah, and that feeling is not as much from the oxygen, it's more from the carbon dioxide buildup that you're getting that makes you feel that ethereal and it kind of blissed out state. It's a buildup of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun chat, and hopefully I took you guys on a different journey than you might normally get on most shows, but I really enjoyed it. We got to talk about swimming a lot more than I ever get to, and that's always
Oh,
exciting. To me.
good. We love to swim.
And just for there's so many resources here, you guys. Look down below here. I'll show you. I think the best place to start is just the website right down there. But also I'll put the other one up just so you know, and that is this one. And you know what I always say about books? Buy two, buy one for you, buy one for a friend, buddy read, and buddy practice. And then you're going to both get better together, and it's a good journey.
Since you mentioned that about books, if you buy 2 of the books, you actually get my meditation music album. Yes, I dropped an album. I worked with my music producer who has 2 master's degrees in sound engineering, and she she integrated music and sounds, specific wavelengths, nature sounds that are engineered to optimize your brain waves for focus, for memory, for a variety of things. And I have it as an album too. So if you get 1 copy of the book, you get into that meditation challenge. If you get 2, not only does your friend that you get the book for get into the meditation challenge, so now you have an accountability buddy, but also you get the music album. So definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done was creating that.
They call those sounds sound drugs, and they really work.
Digital drugs is what the researchers call them. They're so strong that they call them digital drugs when you can put specific frequencies of sound in the music in order to induce feelings, brain waves, changes of endorphins and hormones and chemicals in your bloodstream.
We had a guy on this show. This is how great my show is. We've done everything, right? Wayne Williams, he's from the UK, and he is a psychoacoustician. And so he was like a metal drummer, and he's like, I got to go get a degree, and he got a degree, and he realized all this stuff where the set, and they put the thing with all the wires on your head, and they're like, yeah, what are you feeling?
That's what this does, actually.
Is it really?
Believe it or not, this is a modern version.
I'm doing that better than you are.
It like measures your brain waves. Yes, we can compete to see who is listening to the music better than the other person.
I listen so hard. Well, listen, this has been great. Any questions or anything else you want to say before we go? Because I really appreciate you guys, and it's been a lovely chat. And thanks for working with me on timing. No one wants to get an infection in their leg and have to delay this stuff, but you guys bared with me, and I appreciate you guys.
I'm glad you're on the mend.
All I have to say,
too.
Pete, is it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And to anyone in your audience, I will just say that mental health is a real challenge for all veterans and really anybody, and you're not alone. And I will say meditation has been the single performance enhancing thing that's been beneficial for me, making this transition and handling tough times. And so I couldn't recommend it more to anyone in the veteran community.
And you get the last word. What do you want to say?
meditationfortherealworld.com is where you go to get into that challenge, get the album, get everything, and looking forward to connecting with you.
All right, stand by. I'm going to come back to you guys to say goodnight. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.